Hey there, so I know everyone hates long intros and I kinda hate them too, so if you're unfamiliar with this whole drama, Lawrence Krauss being accused by several women of sexual misconduct, I will have some links below. But before I get into what happened with me, I do have to mention a few things. And to get it out of the way, the title of this video is not clickbait, and it's not a lie. First of all, doing this video will do me no favors. If you think I'm doing it for the views and the money, I'm currently not partnered with YouTube or anybody else. I will literally get zero money from the views of this video. The only money I will get are from Patreon, and it's the same amount no matter what video I post. I could be talking about the weather, okay? I did not have to make a video about this. And if you think I'm doing it for attention, I haven't made a video since, I don't know, it's been like a year. Throughout my history on YouTube of, I think, over 10 years, I was never the one to get in the middle of drama. I was never the one to make a video on every hot piece of news or every viral thing there was. That was never me. This is not the kind of attention I personally enjoy at all. In fact, right now, I'm kind of having anxiety talking about this just because yeah, I'm freaking scared of the backlash. I am not looking forward to it. And I did think about posting this anonymously, but people seem to be so freaking skeptical of anonymous sources. I decided to put my face in this, but it was against my better judgment. But the main reason I didn't want to talk about this wasn't because of the backlash, actually. It was simply because what Lawrence Krauss did to me just wasn't a big deal. And I understand that this may upset some people, okay, but look, nobody can tell me how I should feel about something that's happening to me, right? And to me, it just wasn't a big deal. It wasn't back then, and it wasn't since. I don't think I spent more than 5 minutes of my life dwelling on it, well, except now. But yeah, when the BuzzFeed article came out, I was like, yeah, I'm not going near it. I'm not gonna touch that one. And this may be because I was sexually assaulted. It was many, many years ago. I'm not gonna talk about it now. But for me, it's hard. What I'm trying to say is that it's difficult for me to put what happened to me back then and what Krauss did in the same category of sexual assault, sexual harassment. I understand there's a scale, but I just can't do it, so I'm just gonna call this inappropriate touching. So if I so didn't want to do it, then why am I cringing so hard talking about it now? Well, because I just saw that Lawrence Krauss finally answered the allegations. And there is so much bullshit in his response, I just cannot cope. I mean, he's either flat out lying, or in the best case scenario, he's severely misinterpreting and misremembering things. And I know this because I know one of the anonymous women who accused him, but more on that later. Let me just say what happened to me. In September 2011, I was attending a skeptic conference in Zurich called Denkfest. I was there as a panelist. Lawrence Krauss was there as one of the speakers. Now, before this, I had previously met Lawrence Krauss only once. It was 2 months before, during the amazing meeting in Las Vegas, and I actually got to talk to him very briefly then. I told him I'm a huge admirer, how much I respect his work, which, by the way, I still admire and respect his work very much. And he asked me where I'm from. It was a very brief, like I said, but very pleasant conversation. He was really nice, nothing bad happened. Now skip 2 months ahead to September in Zurich, and this was in between the conference days. It was either a reception or a dinner or a cocktail party, something like that, with all of the speakers and panelists and conference goers. So I'm at this event. At some point I find myself waiting in line at the bar to get a drink. In front of me there's one other person, a conference goer, and you know, I was looking around and I see behind me there's freaking Lawrence Krauss. And he sees me looking at him, he smiles at me, so then I turn around and I say, oh, how nice to see you again, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at 10. Mind you, I say this with a big smile on my face, because guess what, I was happy because I was talking to Lawrence Krauss. But I did not touch him, I did not hug him, I did not shake his hand, there was no kind of physical contact from me towards him, okay? Okay. So I tell him, yeah, we met at 10, whatever, and what does he do? Right there, in front of people waiting in line to get drinks, he reaches down, grabs the bottom of my mini dress, which by the way was short, and tells me, yeah, I think you were wearing the same dress at 10 too, right? And while he's saying this to me, the back of his hand is literally on my thigh, on my upper thigh, okay, like this. And then he also turns his hand around and does one of these. I don't think I'm showing this right, hold on. So just pretend that this piece of jeans here is actually the bottom of my dress, and it was just about this short. So he grabs the bottom of it, the back of his palm is, ah, damn it, this is so freaking cringe and awkward. Okay, the back of his palm is on my thigh, touching my thigh, like glued to it, okay? Tells me that he saw me in this dress before, and then turns his hand around and runs it across my leg like this. Now my immediate reaction to this was, I was just shocked. So my reaction wasn't as strong as it should have been. Maybe I just flinched away and kind of laughed nervously. But in my head, obviously, I was like, dude, how about don't touch me? Also about that dress comment, I mean, freaking rude. Yeah, I'm from Romania, I'm poor, I have one good black dress, I wear it at all events, do you gotta point that out? And yes, I know he didn't say it like that, he didn't say it maliciously, I guess it was his awkward way of flirting or something, but just think a little tiny bit before you speak. But more important than that, how about don't touch me? And look, before you type this, I know I should have said something then and there, okay? I know this. I was just so blindsided in the moment, you have no idea. I mean, it was Lawrence Krauss. And believe it or not, this has actually never happened to me before or since. I mean, it has, but not in this kind of environment, not at this event, in all these years of attending these conferences. I mean, sure, people may come up to you and hit on you, that's true, and I know everybody has their threshold about that, but personally, I'm actually very relaxed about it. You can come at me with whatever cheesy line you want, you can talk to me in whatever rude way you want, you can proposition me in whatever kinky shit crosses your mind. I won't care, I will just politely decline, but I would not get offended, no way. But bitch, don't freaking touch me! I did not say anything to him afterwards either. And see, with me, it wasn't even because I was afraid of consequences, it wasn't like that for me. It was just... You guys don't understand. This is a stranger to me. This is a man I have seen literally twice in my life face to face. We've spoken together for an accumulative amount of 2 minutes maybe. And this is a man I very much respect and admire and look up to. This is Lawrence Krauss. Never in a million years would I have thought that this is the kind of man who would reach down and touch a complete stranger in that way. Maybe it was naive of me, I don't know, but in that moment, my mind was blown. Oh right, I forgot, as I was rushing to grab my drink and go, he was like, oh, by the way, we are in that corner over there if you wanna join us later. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no, I will be in that corner over there. What the fucking? And I know this is the time you say, where is your evidence? Because I see almost like a mantra at this point, to be honest, being repeated with, where is the evidence? Show us the evidence, innocent until proven guilty. Okay, let's talk a little about evidence, shall we? If you're gonna take the criminal law system as a model to judge things in the court of public opinion, then at least you should employ the same standards as a real court does at a real trial. And don't pretend like if the only type of real acceptable evidence is demonstrable empirical evidence. Because that is simply not true, not in the court of law. Yes, that is the strongest type of evidence, but not the only one. For instance, one type of evidence that no court ignores is eyewitness testimonies, okay? And there were eyewitnesses to other incidents involving Krauss. And they did corroborate everything, and people still didn't care. In my case, there was at least one eyewitness, 100% for sure, though there were probably two, though it's quite likely there were more, because like I said, it happened in a room full of people. So if any of you guys were at Dankfest and you saw Krauss touching my leg, please say so. I know for a fact that the guy who was at the bar behind Krauss, he saw everything. And this was a tall motherfucker, well, maybe not that tall, but taller than me and him anyway. And he could see like right in between us, and I saw him saw it, and I locked eyes with him, and he gave me one of those. I also suspect this one other woman who was kind of positioned behind the bar. I think she saw everything just because on my way out, I caught a glimpse of her and she was looking at Krauss with a pretty dumbfounded expression on her face in a bad way. And I'm not 100% sure of that. I may have been reading into it, but I am sure of the other guy. But now for the people who demand evidence, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to find 7 years later some tall guy and some downfunded looking woman who attended the same conference as me in Zurich in 2011? I mean, good luck to me, right? Another type of testimonial evidence that is accepted by courts is, for instance, if a woman is raped and after the rape she runs to her friend's house and she discloses everything to him, and he can see she's crying, she's disheveled, she tells him she got raped, she tells him who did it, she discloses everything to him. But for whatever reasons, she doesn't press charges right then, and she presses charges, say, 1 year later or 2 years later. Well, this friend of hers can be called up in court and will be called up in court if her lawyer is any good to give evidence, is exactly what it's called, which is his oral testimony pertaining to her disclosure. Now, like I said before, this incident for me was not a big deal at all. It left me feeling very uncomfortable and very awkward for about a couple minutes, and then it just became this weird thing that happened. It didn't traumatize me, it didn't even ruin my evening, really. However, since it was this weird thing that happened, I did tell people about it. I told a couple people that night, I told several other people the next morning. So, there is quite a few people who have known about this for years and years since the time it happened. The problem is that if I do name these people who have known about it for years because I disclosed to them at the time, I would have to drag their names through this crappy-ass drama that they have nothing to do with because they're just innocent bystanders, and it would be uncomfortable and unpleasant for them, and I really don't want to do this. I don't. However, if y'all really think I'm a lying hoe, then I will beg and plead with them to let me name them so they can give evidence on my behalf and say that, yeah, bitch told me at the time what happened. Even though I'm not sure what good that will do, to be honest. Like, some people will never believe it. Some people simply cannot believe that a person they have so much respect and admiration for can behave in that way. They just won't. And by the way, in the court of law, multiple complaints do count as evidence too. And of course, and I do think I said this before actually, this type of evidence is not as strong as demonstrable, tangible evidence is. That's a given. However, it should still count for something. You should not say there is no evidence. It should count for something, and when you add things together, it should count for a lot. Especially in a case like this, where tangible, demonstrable evidence is almost a sure thing to not exist. I don't know, man, it is demoralizing to say the least, because I know some of you, and not all of you, I know that, but some of you, your skepticism can only be satisfied by the existence of some videotape catching Krauss in the act, and nothing less than that can be evidence enough for you. But actually, I think that even such a videotape was to exist, there would still be people saying, well, that looks consensual to me. Because people just have a really hard time accepting that their hero is flawed. But this is real life, people. There are no superheroes. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I know who A is, one of the anonymous women who accused Krauss. And in her account of events, she remembers that they were at a convention at the bar downstairs, having a conversation, her with Krauss, but there were other people around, when suddenly, at some point, he starts running his hand up her leg. And she tried to move her leg away, he would still reach over and touch her, and so she had to physically move her entire body to get away from that. And like I said, I knew about this story because, wow, and this is gonna sound seriously like Girls Talk, the Creeper edition, but this is how the conversation went. So I told her first, and this was soon after Zurich, and I was like, dude, you're not gonna believe what Krauss did. And I told her, and she's like, oh no, I totally believe it, he did this to me, Now Krauss's response to this, and he has somebody backing his account of events too, is that she was the one coming on to him, that she was extremely flirtatious, that she invited him to the hot tub, and she was very upset when he declined. There is actually one instance I remember where A was actually asking people to join her in the hot tub, and now, I may be completely off on this. Like I said, I could not get a hold of A, so she did not confirm if this was actually the event that Krauss may be referencing, but I know it was around that time for sure. But this was actually an event. It was called, I'm pretty sure, Skeptics in a Hot Tub, something like that. And it was basically a pool party, you know, hot tub and pool party where a bunch of skeptics got together. The one I went to, it was like 50 people in a pool and hot tub, literally person next to person, right? So we were like sausages up in there. But A was one of the people who was promoting this party. And you know, I was promoting it too, but I was doing it low-key. It wasn't like my job or anything. But there's like one instance I know where she would invite people to the hot tub. And have you ever been approached by a young woman who is promoting something to you or wants to sell you something? When you do this kind of thing, you have to be very upbeat and smiley and giddy and maybe even low-key flirty, because this is the job and this is the attitude you have to have. So you have to be a little like,
oh, hi there, how would you like to join me to the hot tub for this very exclusive party of free thinkers and skeptics? There's gonna be music and booze and it's gonna be so much fun. Are you coming?
You know how they do. But this doesn't mean that they're actually flirting with you, and it certainly doesn't mean that they want you to touch them. I try to phrase this in different ways and I don't really know how to say this without giving up who she is, so I'm just gonna say that A's job was to be a promoter of sorts. I think that's vague enough. She had to have a certain attitude. She had to be really nice to people at these conventions. She had to be smiley and bubbly and upbeat and all that. But guys, she was so creeped out by what Krauss did. She was so creeped out by it. She did not want his hands on her. She did not want that to happen. She did not invite that to happen. And she was also in this impossible situation where she could not leave at that time. Again, I cannot say too much, but she had to stay there. And it was bad. It was much worse than my situation where I could just, who cares? I do want to reiterate though that I did not get a chance to talk to A, so I cannot be sure if this hot tub scenario situation is the same one that I have in mind. However, let's just say, for the sake of the argument, these are two different incidents. And let's say you are Krauss and I am A, the anonymous woman, and we are together at this bar during a convention, a public bar, mind you, with people around us. And your read on me, because this is all it is, a read, is that I'm really into you. You think from my signals that I really like you, that I am openly flirtatious, I even invite you to the hot tub to hang out later, all good. That still does not mean I want your hand up my leg, man. It just doesn't. And I'm not even one of the people who think you need to ask permission for every single sexual thing you do. I understand this is not for everybody. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody wants that done too. I understand that. However, if we are virtual strangers, if this is the first time we met, or we only met once or twice in passing before, and these have been our only interactions, even if you think I am dead into you and I want you real bad, just don't reach for that inner thigh, man. Don't do it. And I'm not saying don't initiate touch. I'm just saying go for something a little more kosher than the inner thigh at first, okay? Go for a shoulder, go for an elbow, go for a wrist. See if I'm flinching from your touch, if I'm welcoming it, if I'm reciprocating. Am I really teaching people game right now? I'm thinking, since Krauss is a celebrity scientist, not just a scientist, maybe like all celebrities, he has his fair share of fangirls who would just want nothing more than to bang him and who would be delighted to get this kind of attention from him. I mean, anything is possible, I guess. I'm sure he thought that his advances are welcomed and appreciated. I'm sure he did. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Trump's grab them by the pussy fiasco, because when you're famous, you can grab women by the pussy and they just let you do it. And at the time, everybody was like, aha! He said they let you do it. They let you do it. That means consent. No. I'm sorry, but that means assumed consent. That means I'm assuming you're gonna let me do this, so I'm gonna do this without asking you first. And I'm sorry, but just because you did this to women in the past and they either seemed to enjoy it or otherwise didn't have a bad reaction to it, that doesn't mean you can just do this to people. I mean, I'm sure that at the time probably Krauss in his mind thought that I let him do it, right? Because he did something without asking first and without giving any indication of what he was about to do, and then I didn't have an explosive negative reaction basically because I was too flabbergasted to react. So that means I let him do it? No man, fuck that! One other woman who accused Krauss described him as predatory, or his behavior as predatory. And oh, by the way, I'm not saying this is not how he was with her. I'm just talking from my experience. After that interaction I had with him, my impression of him wasn't that he's predatory, but more so that he's freaking clueless. Like he thought what he's doing is normal. I mean, he did it right there in front of people, didn't even try to hide it. And afterwards he was smiling at me. Which makes me think, one, that he really thought I would be welcoming it for whatever reason, which again is just assumption. And two, that for him this is normal? What? Touching strangers on their inner thighs, lingeringly? Ugh! Now, I don't want to end this without saying that, in my opinion, I don't even think that Lawrence Krauss is a bad person or anything. I definitely don't think he's beyond redemption, but I do think his giant ego will prevent him from getting this redemption. People are asking for his head right now, and I'm sure many of them would like to see it remain chopped off forever. Personally, I wouldn't. Lawrence Krauss has a brilliant mind, and I think he can still make a great contribution to this world. What I would like to see happen is for him to be able to come back to the scientific community and continue his work. But how can this be without him accepting responsibility for what he's done, and without apologizing to the people he's wronged and accepting the consequences of his actions and all of that? And believe it or not, I thought this is what's going to happen. I thought he's gonna see all these women come out and he would be like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that my interactions with all these women were inappropriate. I apologize for whatever. I thought this is what he's gonna do, but instead he comes up with this piece of baloney of a response, makes me do a video about it. Now I'm all pissed off, and I think I am done, but I am welcoming all your comments, so please let me know, how do you feel about this? Do you think that Lawrence Krauss is guilty? Do you think he's guilty on some counts but not on all? Or do you think he's innocent of everything and yeah, we are all a bunch of lying hoes? And the last thing I want to say is to my very, very incredibly patient subscribers that I don't deserve. I'm sorry it's been so long. Again, I have a feeling I always say this, and I think if you're a long-time subscriber you probably don't even want to hear it anymore. But I think this is back to videos. Let's hope it sticks. I'm gonna copy how the new kids say goodbye right now. Bye!